Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. If you haven't tuned in to our IGTV interviews before, I'm Emily Cantor. I'm one of the co-owners of Cambridge Naturals, and I'm here today with Jerry Angelini, who is the Director of Education at Host Defense. Host Defense is a supplement company, and they are built on expert mycologist Paul Stamets' visionary research into the power and potential of mushrooms, especially mushroom mycelium, which is the root-like structures found growing below the ground. And the power of host defense comes from the discovery that the mycelium is actually the immune system of mushrooms. So you may recognize some of their products. I have some right here, some of my personal favorites, like the Stress and Decompress, which is a mushroom blend with some herbs and botanicals, the My Community extract for comprehensive immune support, which I take every day, and also their Breathe extract for healthy respiratory support. Also, I'm taking that every day right now. So Jerry,
All very good choices
all
given
very
what
good
we're dealing
choices.
with, right?
So to introduce you, Jerry, Jerry is an integrative practitioner with training and experience in psychiatric and chronic illness rehabilitation. His undergraduate and graduate degrees are from Boston University, right here in our area, although he's now based in San Diego. And they form the foundation of his conventional medical training, which is then augmented by traditional Chinese medicine, herbalism, Ayurveda, and Western clinical herbalism. So Jerry, thank you so much for being here with
Yeah,
me.
you're most welcome. It's always great to see you in chat, right?
Yeah, exactly. Even under these very
It's
bizarre
very
times.
strange, weird.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, when we talk about medicinal mushrooms, so we're not talking about psilocybin, right? Like, I mean, there's certainly
And
some very compelling research around psilocybin and its effects on trauma, et cetera. But the
right.
mushroom supplements that Host Defense makes, they're not psilocybin, they're not psychedelic. So why are people so excited about medicinal mushrooms these days?
Yeah, just a quick reminder for those people that are really interested in the psilocybin research. It's still a controlled substance, which means that
Right.
you could go to jail if you have it or sell it or buy it. So just, that's changing in some places, but it is still a controlled substance, and the FDA would not look favorably upon us if that were in any of our products. So, yeah, you don't have to worry about hearing colors when you take host defense mushrooms, right? Well, the host defense mushrooms they're kind of unique, right? So most of the products out in the market focus on what's called the fruit body
Mhm.
and extracting the fruit body. And host defense is a little bit different. We, in fact, go for the whole mushroom. We want the root structure, which is called the mycelium. We want the sprouts of the fruit bodies called primordia. We do work with fruit bodies as well, and we also work with something called the fermented substrate. So when we're growing our mycelium, we grow it on organic brown rice. And those mycelium, they kind of go into the rice, they grow through it, they secrete enzymes to digest it, and basically they're fermenting that rice. And what you have is this whole substance, which the research that we've been doing with a third-party lab has shown it to be very powerfully immunologically active, and in a very special way. Uh, the research that's been published in peer-reviewed journals over the past, I think, 4 months now. So one came out in December in 2019, and one came out in February 2020. Showed that the mycelium part, so the root structure of the mushroom, engages our innate and acquired immune cells, so very specific cells in your immune system. And that fermented rice engages what we call resolution of the immune response, which basically helps. Once you get the immune system up and running, you've got to take it back down again to a watchful waiting place. And so both parts of the product, the mushroom mycelium and that fermented rice, they are very synergistic, and they also are complementary. So it's really unique. It's pretty amazing, in fact.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So it's not only the mushroom and the mycelium, but it's actually the medium that you're choosing to grow on has this other benefit to it. That's really
Absolutely, yeah.
Very cool. Can you talk a little bit more about that approach to cultivation? Why does host defense grow on brown rice? You know, even before you had these studies, what is the thinking behind doing that versus, say, going out and cultivating mushrooms in the wild?
So if you like wild harvest mushrooms, it's really resource challenging. It like puts a lot of pressure on our natural ecosystems. There's a lot of waste when you're just extracting fruit bodies. So you get these fruit bodies, you cut them up, you extract them, you get your extract, and then you throw away all this other material. In host defense, when we're growing the mushrooms into the rice, all of that is used. We can eat rice, right? But if we were to grow it in wood, you can't grind that up and put that into a capsule, right? So your waste stream is significantly less. You have the growing medium, you have the mycelium, you have these really cool substances that the mycelium secretes, and they tend to lump them into this group of compounds called secondary metabolites.
Okay.
And basically, it means like the enzymes, their immune system that secretes its own self protective compounds into its growth environment. And then you get these really cool like antioxidants like ergothioneine and some other kind of cool like um, polysaccharides that aren't beta glucan in nature that are also immunologically active. So there's this huge range of compounds that you get when you use that whole root structure and what you're growing it in. It's really quite phenomenal. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Every time I've heard you talk or heard Paul talk, I'm like, my mind is blown by all of the amazing things that mushrooms have to offer, um,
Yeah.
as humans. So, you know, we're obviously in a situation with COVID-19, and a lot of people are looking for ways to boost their immune system. I have read, you know, from Paul Stamets and also other experts like Dr. Viva Ram, that you want to avoid isolated mushroom extracts. So what is an isolated mushroom extract versus what host defense is creating?
So we just do this basic disclaimer that we
Yeah,
don't diagnose, treat, prevent, cure any
of
illness or
course.
disease, right? Because we have to, right? Um, However, what we do know is that there are certain compounds, there's this whole range of different compounds in mushrooms. And one class of compounds that have been looked at for a long time are called beta glucans. And these are polysaccharides, so they fall within the same nutritional category as carbohydrates, right?
Okay.
And these aren't like the caloric carbohydrates that we're so used to, like starch or wheat or things like that. So we don't get energy from them, and our body doesn't digest them per se. What they do is they bind to our immune cells, and they basically tell the immune cell that, oh, you need to start working really hard now.
Okay.
The challenge with that is that they're all really stimulatory for the immune response. So they get the immune system going. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. But in our world right now, when people's immune systems are going out of control, that could be problematic.
Right.
Right. So what the general medical community is looking for is what are called immune modulators. So instead of immune stimulators, they're looking for substances that will help keep the immune system strong and active, yet also make sure that it doesn't get out of control. So it stays within what we like to call the Goldilocks zone of immune functioning, right? And this is, you know, from the research, exactly what host defense mushrooms do, right? So they get those immune cells up and running, but then that fermented rice is critical to make sure the immune system doesn't overreact.
Right.
And this is why like people are like going crazy about host defense mushrooms right now, because it keeps that immune system functioning within the Goldilocks zone.
Very cool. What are some of those mushrooms that people are starting to take more that fall within that zone specifically? Or, is it all medicinal mushrooms, or are there specific ones that are really beneficial during
So yeah, that's a great question because like everyone's buying something that says immune support on it, but
treatment?
but every mushroom in the host defense line shows that balanced immune response in
Very
terms
cool.
of the research that we're doing. So you can use just reishi on its own, which actually might be a great idea because it's one of the strongest modulators in the mushroom world.
Mhm.
So even though like the host defense reishi says longevity on it,
Right.
know that part of the reason it says longevity is that it helps balance the immune system and keeps it functioning in that Goldilocks zone. Um, Cordyceps, another amazing mushroom specifically for lung functioning and oxygenation. So that breathe formula that you had picked up earlier, that has cordyceps, reishi, and chaga in it. And the cordyceps, some of the research around it shows that it increases the liquefaction of bronchial lavage mucus. So that's that kind of like our lungs have this layer of mucus inside of them to keep things, moist and protected. And it's when that gets super thick, that's when things get pretty nasty. And when our lungs start to hyperproduce that. And cordyceps has been shown to keep that pretty liquefied, which is really important so we can clear it out more easily. But cordyceps also increases oxygenation at the alveolar membrane. That's the membrane in your lungs where oxygen diffusion occurs. And so, like, you may really want to make sure you have some cordyceps or that breathe formula on hand. There's another formula called Cordychi. It's half cordyceps and half reishi, another excellent product to help with lung functioning and graceful breathing and managing and balancing that immune system. So, literally, every mushroom in the host defense line is going to be supportive for the immune response. It's going to balance it. But then things like Cordychi, reishi, cordyceps, breathe, Stamets 7, which
Yep.
has both reishi and cordyceps, but also chaga in there too. My community, myco shield, that can be pretty helpful too. So really everything. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, even before all this occurred, I've been using the products obviously for years, and the Myco Shield, which is the spray, I carry pretty much everywhere,
Me too. Me
because like
too.
I work with the public
Yeah.
pretty much all day, every day, and you never know
Yeah.
who's gonna sneeze on you, and
Yeah.
so I keep it, and I've also sent it to like friends of mine who are teachers who are surrounded by this like petri dish of germy kids and stuff. So
Perfect.
it's a great
Perfect.
product, yeah.
Yeah, I use it a lot because, I fly for work a lot and I
Right.
do trainings in front of audiences. And, people want to come up and shake your hand and say hi. And, they want to talk and ask questions, so everywhere I go, I'm constantly interacting with people. And I swear by the Myco Shield. It's a great, great product to
Yeah.
support that really strong yet balanced immune response.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, Host Defense is known obviously for their mushroom products, but they're also, I think, fairly well known for the efforts that they make as a company to invest in, environmental solutions and how
Yeah.
they relate to mushrooms. So, could you tell me a little bit about some of the projects that Host Defense has going on, like Give Bees a Chance, that support not only human health, but also the health of the
Yeah.
planet?
Yeah, so we've been working with Washington State University for quite a number of years now. I think it's going on around 5 or 6 years, probably. And what we've been doing with them is trying to figure out a way to increase bee immunity to support them in their fight against colony collapse disorder. And basically, what colony collapse disorder is that hives and bees do have parasites, right? And one of them is called the Varroa destructor mite, which is kind of gross and it
Sounds
is pretty
awful.
destructive, right?
Yep.
Um, and it vectors in various viruses and bacterial, pathogens as well. And many of these viruses have devastated hives across the world. And it's not just the US, it's literally worldwide. Um, and we've been seeing decrease in bee populations anywhere from like 30 to like 80% in some places. And this is pretty challenging and kind of concerning for a lot of people because bees are one of the primary pollinators. There are a lot of other wild pollinators too. We don't want to forget them.
Right,
But bees are really a primary managed pollinator in the world around us. So we're trying to figure out how to make sure they stay healthy and alive and they don't get decimated by these viruses
right.
and bacteria. And we've found, and we've also published research with Washington State University on how a couple of the different species of mushrooms strongly engage that bee immune activity and have shown reduction in viral loads anywhere from like 80-fold to 45,000-fold reduction in viral count.
That's amazing.
So yeah, it's like it's mind-boggling, in fact, just how powerful these little mushroom mycelial exudates and like extracts can be for not just humans, but maybe even bees too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
it's pretty,
amazing.
yeah, pretty crazy.
Yeah, I think we, we tend to think in like isolated segments, like, okay, I'm gonna tackle human health, I'm gonna tackle environmental health, as if they're like separate things. And
Yeah, it's
I love
not.
that Host Defense brings them together and is like, no, actually, the health of our planet impacts our human health as well. So
Right.
this is critically important that we have, a healthy bee population that can then pollinate
Mhm.
our food and,
Right.
etc. So
Well, as we're seeing now, like COVID-19, like that comes from, an animal
right,
viral strain that kind of jumped into the human strain, into the human population. And I don't know that we'll ever have to worry about getting deformed wing virus, but you know, maybe for
or
those
that,
angels among us, we have to worry about the angels among us with the deformed wing virus, but
exactly.
most of us don't have to worry about that. But it does speak to this larger experience of this is one world. We all live in it together, and microbes are everywhere. And so we may be able to fight off some and not others. But that doesn't mean that they're not there and that our immune system still needs to be able to mount a response
Right,
when we're exposed to bacterial, viral, even fungal pathogens. And this is where we know that mushrooms can strongly support a balanced immune response so that we can stay healthy in our day-to-day life.
right. Exactly. That's so critical. I'm
Yeah.
curious, outside of taking mushrooms, what other things that you personally are doing to stay healthy and well and also just grounded during this
Yeah.
totally crazy time?
Meditation is critical. Stress increases interleukin 6, which is one of the major triggers for immune activity. It's also the trigger that people are really concerned about with this whole issue. Like interleukin 6, like is kind of running out of control. But stress triggers are the release of it in our bodies. So meditation, breathing, taking walks, turn the TV or at least the news off,
Right.
put on something like, I don't know, nature sounds, or listen to some of your favorite music, right? Read a book that's not about like people like
Pandemic.
dying from, yeah, and
Yeah.
don't watch those like those movies that are focusing in on like
Apocalyptic.
viral outbreaks and zombie apocalypse. Yeah, don't do it. Like just like step away from the TV remote, right?
Yeah.
Just and take care of yourself, like good healthy foods, reduce sugars if you can. I know it's really hard because people like to snack during these times,
Right.
but like get into as positive as possible, like some of your daily habits. Drink some tea. Like having a nice cup of tea can be really helpful in changing your whole mental and physical experience. Yeah, and still work out too.
Yeah.
We do know that even at home, like there are all these things online, like I'm doing this thing called Tabata, and it's like this, yeah, it's like 4 minutes. It's really intense, and then you repeat it 3 or 4 or 5 times, and it gives you a good half hour of getting your heart rate up, getting your blood moving. And we know that this is also really important for reducing stress and balancing that immune response. So definitely do all of these things. We're at home, we might as well try and make the best of it, right? But really try not to like get sucked into the fear associated with it. Wash your hands, keep good distance from people, but don't like block yourself off from them. So maintain however you can your interactions and your support networks. And then what I really love to do is do something good for someone without them knowing it.
Oh,
And right? So, like do something good for someone else, because what it then does is, it actually makes us feel good about ourselves. We've taken positive action.
yeah, I think that's a really important component of like the self-care is actually helping others. And as you said, maybe even without telling them that you're doing it, and that can actually really help, you feel internally good, which is a form of
Yeah,
self-care. So baths are great, but also
yeah,
supporting others is really
yeah,
great, and
yeah,
can help you feel
yeah.
better too. So well, thank you so much, Jerry. It was a real pleasure to talk with you, and I really appreciate you taking the time, and appreciate all that Host Defense is doing to try and keep us all healthy and well, especially during these times, but ongoing. So thank you.
You're most welcome. Have a great day. Stay safe and healthy, and we'll chat soon. I'm hoping, and I'm
I'm
sure.
sure. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.